Hey, everybody, jumping on right now. We are so glad that you're here for today's virtual roundtable for members only. Man, it was so good to have an open house where so many people were looking in, looky-loos, checking it out, but it's also great to just have family and friends. We are glad to have the members of the Idea Network part of this conversation today. We're going to have a great opportunity to hear about reaching young adults for the gospel of Jesus Christ and really advancing young adult ministry. It's something that Southern Hills has really been pushing toward for quite some time. And we launched a young adult ministry just a few years ago called the Hillside. Pastor Caleb Sargent is our next gen pastor, which means Caleb Sargent actually leads all of our children's ministry from nursery, children's ministry, teen ministry, young adult, 18 to 29. And so owns a major portion of our ministry here in Las Vegas. And he's going to be talking specifically about reaching young adults with the gospel of Jesus Christ and assimilating them. We are so glad you're here, each and every one. We're going to get to that conversation in just a moment, along with a Q&A. But before we do, everybody, the Lady Dulo herself is here with several announcements about upcoming events that the members need to know about. Hey, Lady Dulo, Miss Kylie, are we excited about San Antonio or what?
Yes, it is going to be amazing. San Antonio in particular. I think you've all more than likely seen the emails at this point. I'm actually going to go over that in a second as well. But San Antonio is going to be pretty epic, to say the least. And we have a lot more details coming for that very soon as well. I did want to show you guys something from the Friday emails. So every Friday, we send out a membership email, and is very detailed with announcements, with the replay link, with links to new resources. In regards to the San Antonio event, there's a link to book your hotel room or explore San Antonio, what's around the hotel where we will be going. And that hotel link in particular is very specific to our group. So I'm going to go through that. But if you're not receiving these Friday emails, please let me know. Please shoot me an email, or even just in the text, the chat button below, just say, hey, I don't know what you're talking about. It could very well be that, and most likely is, that your computer is like blocking your email from receiving those. That has happened many times. Maybe it's just going to your spam or your junk mail. But those emails are a big part of this membership program. A lot of the resources and the perks that we offer you on a weekly basis are distributed through those Friday emails. So if you're not receiving those, you really are missing out on a large aspect of the membership program. And I do want to show you the email really quick, just so you can kind of see what I'm talking about here. So this is what the email looks like. Every single Friday, it has the date of that Friday. So it's the date of the newsletter. And so this was this last week's newsletter. Okay, so here it says weekly newsletter. We start by just overviewing this past week. So here, this would take you directly to the roundtable replay. I know a lot of you are very active in the members Facebook group. We do post it there as well, the replay. But some of you, maybe email is better. And so you can also access the replay from this email. We announced the challenge for the month and the challenge winner. So last month's challenge winner was Philip Jones, and he won $150 for him and two of his friends, $50 each, for bringing them to the open house. And that was awesome. He did a great job. And one of his friends actually signed up and is one of our new members. So we're very excited about that. So October, like this month's challenge, it's a bit more of a hearty challenge. And this is where you would find out, other than within this roundtable, you would find out through the weekly email. So this month's challenge is to read all 4 Gospels in their entirety. While reading, take notes on Christ's ministry and how he actively set up the 12 disciples for longevity in ministry. So our theme of October is longevity in ministry. And so we want to study that. We want to go deeper into what does the Bible say about that? How did Jesus, as as a pastor of those 12 disciples, how did he set his own team up for longevity? And then the prize for the month is a free night stay at the Hilton Palacio del Rio in San Antonio, which is $189. So that is a great prize. You know, we have been posting our new members as they come in every single week. This week we had 4. So welcoming these new members and also allows you to get to know them a little bit better with their the links to their ministry pages. So that's awesome. Here is where really for about a month or so now, we've been sharing with you a lot of the details on San Antonio. And I won't really go into that much because you have already seen it. This button right here, though, will take you to actually register on our page. So we don't know if you're coming unless you register. It is free to you as a charter member. But we do still need you to let us know that you're coming. So sign up for that free ticket. Doesn't cost you anything, just register. And then your +1 or your sponsored member can also sign up through this link. This is the link to purchase and book your hotel room. If you don't use our booking link, it's going to cost you about $250 to $275 per room. So we want to save you money on that. We have a room block already established. So use this link in the email to save money on your hotel room. Or if you win this month's challenge, then you get a night free. So that's amazing. So this upcoming week, again, this was given last Friday, was talking about today with Pastor Caleb Sargent. It gives you the meeting code as well as a direct link. So I don't mind getting your text messages every week when you guys shoot over a text and say, hey, can I have the link? Feel free to do that. But I did want to make sure that you knew all of your options. And that is that you have this right here. And I'll start sending out an email, I think, early Tuesday morning so that it's right there on your fingertips. And I think that'll help as well. But just so you know, it is in these Friday emails. I'm not skipping this. This is very important. I'm going to get to it in just a second because this is kind of the main reason that I'm showing you guys this whole email is this membership survey. Okay, so if you would like to be a trainer, you could sign up here. Here's the tracks that Idea Day 22 we'll be having at both Idea Day South and Midwest. Sponsored members, you can read through that later. Sponsored members are a big part of your membership. It's a way that you can kind of pay it forward and bring in someone who maybe at the moment couldn't afford it, or maybe they can, but you know they should be a part, but they don't know that yet, and you're helping incentivize them to be a part. This is where you can offer and gift a membership to someone else. So you would just click on this link and send that link to whoever you're wanting to sponsor. They would sign up that way, and we would assign them to you. You can only have one, but we would assign them to you, and then they would be your sponsored member as long as they are involved. Here's a list of some that have actually requested. They actually can't afford it. They aren't assigned to anyone right now, and they're asking like, hey, I'd love to be a part of this, but I can't afford it right now. Is there someone in your membership that would sponsor me? So those are their names, and we can give you more information on those people if you are interested and maybe you want to sponsor, but you don't know who these people are. Okay, and then at the end, we usually give the month overview of what you can expect for the rest of the month, which is right here, longevity and ministry. So this is a live link. This is very important for every member in our membership program and sponsored member as well. We'd love to get your feedback to go through this survey. We want to make sure that we are giving you the absolute best value. Also, we understand that you guys might have some amazing ideas for the membership program, and we want you to be able to share those with us. So this is the mode in which you can do that. So please take this survey. It'll be up in those Friday emails every single Friday, and I'll also post it in the Facebook group as well, so it's easier access. But we want to know, what is your greatest need in ministry right now? How could we pray for you? There's a bunch of questions that get kind of nitty gritty that kind of give us some insight into your ministry, but also how we could better support you in your ministry through this membership program. So I won't go through all those questions right now, but we do want to know things like what are some of the topics you would like to see covered in one of the roundtables, and so on and so forth. There's quite a bit there, so I won't go through all of it. So please do take time to take that survey, but also, and almost more importantly, if you're not receiving the Friday emails, please let me know, because those are very important to communicating all of the aspects of your membership. And we want to make sure that you have the ability to take advantage of those. Just so you are aware, we do send an email network-wide every Tuesday. So that actually went out this morning. You may have already seen it. And then every Tuesday, network-wide, every Friday, just to the members only. So if you've never seen a Idea Network email, it's probably going to your spam box, because if you're a member, we definitely have your email. So please do look into that and take the survey. I'll put a link here in the chat as well to make it super easy. And hopefully you can take it and not be too distracted while listening to Pastor Caleb. In the chat as well, please remember to put your name and your church so we can have that roll call. All right, Pastor Josh, back over to you.
Thanks, Kylie. Having Kylie Dulo living and breathing Idea Network with us and for us has been an incredible blessing. Really, of all the ministry leaders that I've had a chance to work with, Kylie ranks right up there at the top for her passion for people and her organizational ability to keep us on track. So thank you, Kylie, for your leadership in so many ways. And I'm also blessed to work with another great leader. His name is Caleb Sargent, works with all of our next gen ministry. So if you're watching this live, we're going to do a live Q&A after Caleb is done speaking. So make sure you write down all your questions for some answers. And I know a lot of people have got a lot going on right now. So there are different conferences from all the way out to Florida and all the way out to California. And we missed having you live and in person. But I know that this conversation is going to be a blessing to you a little bit later when you watch it on the reloop. So go ahead and enjoy that and share it with those that you would be interested in sharing that with. Caleb Sargent, as I mentioned, works as the Next Gen Director and Pastor at Southern Hills here in Las Vegas. We're specifically targeting down and narrowing down, not into nursery and children's ministry and youth ministries, but specifically young adult ministry, how to target them, how to reach them with the gospel of Christ and drag them back into the congregation or reach them for the very first time. Caleb's got some great conversations and some great ideas here. Make sure you get your pens ready for some notes as well as Q&A after. Caleb Sargent, would you take it away?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm excited to be here and privileged to be here with you guys. I want to make sure that I am sharing my screen here. So let me make sure. Kylie, it says to share, and then if I'm wanting to share a keynote, would it just be, let me see if it's
So it'll, when you push the share screen, it'll come up with kind of all the pages you have open, and you could select one. Sometimes it'll take you right there. Other times you have to scroll through your pages a little.
Okay, let me make sure. I think it's making me change my preferences for whether or not this can record. I think is what it's saying. So hang on, I should have clicked on this already, guys. Sorry.
No problem. I'll actually jump in here while he's doing that. I've already had a couple of you text me and asked to change your email to one that you use more often. That is wonderful. If you want to do that, please feel free. Maybe we're sending it to kind of a junk mail or maybe even an assistant email that maybe isn't getting to you when it needs to. If you would like to update your email that's associated with your membership in order to receive those Friday emails and to be able to take advantage of those, please feel free to do that. Just shoot it over in the chat here. If you've got my number, you can definitely text me. Most of you, I believe, have my number. I'll put it in the chat right now. And definitely, however we can get that to you. If we need to have a couple of emails on file, that's no problem at all. We want to make sure that you are able to access that information. So I think Pastor Caleb is here again. You might need just, oh, here we go. Perfect. I'll turn it over again.
Okay, so I think I'm on, I think I'm good. Kylie, give me a thumbs up if you can hear me and everything you can see. Okay, awesome. So appreciate you guys bearing with me there a little bit. As we had to add, I don't know if their permission changed, what it is, but I'm excited to be here and thrilled. Pastor, thanks for the kind words, the kind introduction, and just a little bit about me, how this has kind of grown at our church. So I moved here 3 years ago to Southern Hills. Some of you guys are probably familiar with that. And when I did, the ministry model was they were getting ready to launch or kind of relaunch our young adult ministry, specifically and branding it for the Hillside. So I was looking forward to kind of watching and like, man, this is exciting. And then as that happened, I was overseeing kids and overseeing teens. And then as that happened, they kind of brought in our our team leaders, Matt and Madison Elam. If you don't know them, they're awesome. Were moving away at the time. And so they're like, hey, you can run our young adult ministry too. And so that was exciting. I was looking forward to that. And I'm like, okay, cool. I was going to watch you guys do it. So I got kind of thrown into the mix, but I love so many things they did. So we're going to share some of the things that we are doing that are working. We're going to share some of the things that we've done that have not worked. So I think sometimes people show up in the comments just for that. They want to know what we've tried that hasn't worked. So we're going to share some of those things with you. So that's the title, Targeting and Reaching Young Adults. And God truly has blessed us to be able to work with some awesome young adults here. So I don't know where you're at. Maybe you're looking at starting a young adult ministry. Maybe you have one. It needs to be revamped. Maybe you just want to know how to reach them. And I love, Pastor Josh, what you said about sometimes young adults need a bridge back to the church. Sometimes they've kind of processed out, and even unchurched or de-churched is a popular phrase right now. And they're looking for that bridge back, and a young adult ministry is a great way to do that. So targeting and reaching young adults, what can we look at? The first thing I want to say is I'm not the expert on this. We were talking beforehand, and Pastor, I was like, man, own this, you're the expert. And I said, I literally have a slide that says I'm not the expert. So maybe you guys can feel me on that, but this is a growing and kind of evolving ministry that we've been able to kind of ride by the coattails and be excited for, but also understand, hey, there is some tricks of the trade. There's some things that we're applying, some lessons that we learned early on. So if you'll bear with me, I'll show you what's worked. I'll share with you what has worked here. And maybe you can apply that. Maybe you just walk away. This is what I love about Idea Network. Really, our goal here is you can walk away with one idea that you can implement. So I'm going to give 5 different kind of statements that have helped fuel our young adult ministry. Maybe you can walk away with one of them today. Maybe it's just a perspective shift or refocus that you have to make today. So I'm excited for those things. I'm not the expert. I do have some ideas that have worked for us. And so that's what I'm here to share, 5 of those ideas with you today. And then the last thing I'd say is this: young adult ministry should be organic, not mechanic. And what I mean by that is this is core to who I am as a person. I am not giving you a formula that if you do these 5 things in your young adult ministry, you will see X amount of growth. What I am giving you is some truths that you can kind of sprinkle over the top of your organism, sprinkle over the top of your group, and hopefully it will help kind of weed out some of the things that maybe shouldn't be there, or maybe that are being overemphasized, and hopefully cause growth to take place where there needs to be growth take place. So everyone's will look different, and that's an exciting thing. That's the privilege that we have to partner together. All right, so without any more preference or further ado, we're going to jump in here and say, what does it look like? For us, our young adult ministry is called The Hillside. So we launched this 2 years ago. Our motto was real talk, real people, real truth. We launched in 2019, and then our age parameters we set. Now, Pastor had kind of hosted a couple things at his home that was from 18 to 35, and what they learned during that time was 18 to 35 is a broad age span. Maybe you already know that, but they kind of learned that. So they said, okay, 18 to 28, this is going to be our focus. 18 years old to 28 years old, really a generation, almost a decade of young adults that we're going to kind of lean in and focus on. And the model they built The Hillside on was monthly talks on the last Monday of every month. We're going to kind of work through some things that worked and some things that didn't work for us. So monthly talks, last Monday of every month. And then for the launch of The Hillside, our team heavily utilized social media. That's where young adults are. They're on there. So they used hashtags. They used, follow me, I'll follow you type mentality. So going through following young adult ministries, all those things throughout the Valley. And Hillside launched very successfully January 2019. with, I think it was right at 60, 70 young adults that came out attending that first time. Now, I'm going to give you 5 truths that we've learned along the way over the last 2 years as the Hillside launched. Okay, the first one is this: you've got to identify your target. If you're wanting to lean into young adult ministry, if you're wanting to target young adults and say, okay, this is kind of where I'm at, learn this lesson from us. We wanted to identify our target, but what we ended up doing was we made that 18 to 28, and we kind of took for granted, we kind of stereotyped 18 to 28-year-olds. What we learned early on was that, for instance, we had young adults in there who were 23 and 25, and they were married, and their needs were a little bit different than a 26-year-old who's older than them, but who's still single. We learned early on, for us, 18 to 28 was not necessarily the only delineator that we wanted to focus on. So very quickly for us, we began to realize, hey, some parameters that we had set that maybe weren't, they're kind of false truths. Maybe this isn't true, that if someone's a young adult, they have all these same needs. We have a 20-year-old right now. I'll talk more about him later, but his name is Daniel. And Daniel, 20 years old, Daniel is a very successful entrepreneur. So Daniel's needs are going to be a little different than a 25-year-old that I may have that's working kind of a 9 to 5, and it just is what it is. They're trying to finish up their degree online. So those things vary. You need to identify your target. Here's what our reality ended up looking like for the Hillside. Now, our age delimiters are still 18 to 28, but our age reality is we reach young adults on the lower end of that. Part of that is because of where we're at in Las Vegas, Nevada. There's a heavy population of young adults here. Part of that is we have a lot of college age students, and that's just kind of bred more of that. That's kind of allowed for more of that. So our age reality is 18-25. We switched. We learned early on that Monday was not a good day for our monthly talks. We thought early on, hey, Monday was going to be a good day. We're going to kind of, make this happen. Nothing else happens on Mondays. And then we realized nothing else happens on Mondays for a reason. We realized that people don't want to go out on Mondays. We have young adults that are college age, 18-25, and they want to do something on Friday. They're looking for something to put on their Friday docket other than going to the party scene, other than going to the bar, other than doing the things that their coworkers are doing. They want to go somewhere where they can find purpose, where they can find intentionality. So we moved our talks to the last Friday of the month. Then we learned very quickly on that as we created our system and our program, we learned that we had a need. Young adults really wanted to spend time together. They wanted to go do things. So we started with monthly talks, then we added quarterly hangs. Real quickly, we tried adding monthly hangs, and we learned very quickly that young adults, they want to do things, but they can't do something every single month. It comes down to finance and different things. So we opted for the quarterly hang option. Movie nights, young adult conferences, just going to the park, going to a baseball game. We have a minor league team here, the Aviators, that we've gone to, and we found young adults want to spend time together in community. So monthly talks, quarterly hangs. Then the number one thing we heard from our young adults was, hey, we don't meet often enough. We want to be at the Hillside more. What can we do to be at the Hillside more? So we relaunched our small groups post-COVID, and that's allowed for us to meet every single Friday night. Young adults gather over at the Green Valley campus. And if it's not a talk, Hillside talk, that night of the month, or if we're not in a hang that quarter, every other night is a small group night, unless we have another event or something like that going on. Like, for instance, this weekend we have our ladies event. So we're pushing all our young adult ladies to go to our ladies event with Miss Heather, rather than pulling them away through a small group. So we started weekly small groups, and we used a video curriculum. Right now, media, that's been a gold mine for us. There's a young adult study called Adulting from Jonathan Pokluda on there. Jonathan Pokluda helped start or found The Porch, which is a pretty well-known young adult ministry in Dallas, Texas. So he's got a talk on there, Adulting. I think it's a 6-week session, maybe an 8-week session. So just some great resources that helped us find common ground with young adults and say, okay, here's where we want to be. So we identified our target. We skewed younger for our young adults, and we found young adults that wanted to be together in community. Once we identified that, then we realized, okay, I'm going to kind of go back on that and say, if you're looking to start a young adult ministry, start monthly. And the reason for that is I just talked with Seth down at Rock Hill Church. They had just kind of started, they'd done a young adult conference, but they hadn't yet done a young adult group. And so he's like, man, should we go weekly? Should we go monthly? And I told him, start monthly. And here's the reason. You want to create a space or experience that young adults want to be a part of. You don't necessarily want to create a space that feels, more tiring, or you're just unsure, like, oh, I'm kind of coming in, what are we studying today? I believe this with all my heart. One exceptional experience is better than 4 mediocre experiences. Young adults are going to be able to recognize, hey, this is thrown together. Hey, this is last minute. So if you're looking at young adult, maybe for you, you'd even go smaller. You say, man, my resources are really limited. Start quarterly, once a quarter, once every few months, get your young adults together. But start small and make it exceptional, and then let it grow from there. We meet weekly because our young adults have come to the point where they're like, we want to meet more. We want more input. We want more outtake. So that's where we're at on that. But I believe that if you're going to start a young adult ministry, if you're going to invest in young adults, you want to, number one, identify your target. And then number two, start monthly. Allow that opportunity. It gives you more planning time. I would rather have young adults who for a month are like, have young adult to go to, man, I can't wait for, and then whatever your night is, for us, it's Friday night, the last Friday of the month, I'm looking forward to this talk. I'd rather push them towards something than over inundate them on the front end. So second, I said this, start monthly. Here's what our monthly talk looks like. Matter of fact, I copied and pasted this one from our September talk. We go from 7 p.m. to roughly about 9 p.m. on a Friday night. We start with music, food, and just kind of hanging out. I don't know if this is culturally true for just young adults, or if it's culturally true just for Las Vegas, but our people always show up late. So if you feel that struggle, I always build out my program. Here's my start time, and then it's a 10-minute buffer for people to show up, for people to walk in, so don't feel like they're missing something. We just build that in. Music, food, chill. Then at 7:10, I get up and we do a welcome and an icebreaker. Small note here, we purposely delineated from icebreaker instead of game. Anytime we'd play a game, it felt more youth groupish. We didn't want it to feel like just older kids at a youth group. We wanted it to feel like young adults. So we do an icebreaker. If you're a part of Grow Ministry, you know what that is. In Grow Ministry, they have an app called Grow Games. I don't know if you guys can see, probably not, it's reflection. Grow Games, but they have icebreakers in there. It's completely free. So every hillside, we get up before our talk and we'll ask a couple icebreakers, 1, 2, or 3 icebreakers, and kind of get the crowd warmed up and help them feel welcome. Simple icebreakers like, all right, you've got $5. What's the best way to spend $5? And then young adults will just take that, own it, they'll run that. Then we go 7:15, we go into worship. I can't emphasize this enough. This should be a big point, but it's not. I'm not the worship guy. I don't do anything with that. You need to partner with someone who is skilled when it comes to worship. Michael and Abby are a dream team for me when it comes to our young adult ministry, when it comes to worship, when it comes to putting them together. If you've been around Southern Hills or even Idea Network for a little while, you've probably seen or been in a service where Michael and Abby led out in the worship area. An incredible duo, husband-wife team that we have here. You need to find someone that can do worship and do it well, okay? This is a big part of the culture of young adults. They want to have that worship time. They want to lean into that. And it helps set apart your event from, especially if you're trying to get those de-churched and unchurched people, it helps set them apart, set your event apart to where it's like, okay, we talked about some radical things, but it was different, man. There was worship, and I think that's a good thing. Then I get back up, introduce the speaker. This last September, our speaker was Corey Frank. He's a businessman in our church. I get up, I introduce him. They talk for about 30 minutes. Again, we set the format to talk. We had a couple pastors come in and literally say like, well, I don't really have a sermon. And we're like, that's good. That's what we want. We don't want, it's not a sermon style. It is a talk. We sit around and we talk about truths, and we're okay to wrestle with things. We're okay to say, I don't know where I'm at on that. So our speaker, and then we always end it with a Q&A. Pastor Josh has been a part of ours. Our Q&A section always just takes off. So our Hillside event, we're working with young adults. It kind of ramps up, and then by the time you get to the Q&A, young adults have big questions. They want to know, hey, where are you at? They want to know that you know where you're at, and they want to know it's okay to struggle with some truths, with some talk. So that's what a order of service looks like for our Hillside talk. I think all this will be in the show notes, but we can post my presentation here later as well if you just want to look at that. Then I would say this, thirdly, once you've identified your target, once you've decided here's where I'm going to start kind of monthly, then I would say invest aggressively. And what I mean by that is, I don't know if you have an investment portfolio or just something as simple as Acorns, but Acorns lets you set, we use Acorns, Acorns lets you set kind of rolls over your change basically into an investment platform. And it lets you can set investment at moderate, which is kind of a safe play, or you can set investment at aggressive, which is more of the, man, I really want to be out there. I really want to see some return on investment, right? I think sometimes our default when it comes to young adults, even without saying it, our subconscious default in investing in young adults is we set to the invest moderately because we're not sure how much return on investment we're going to get from a young adult ministry. We're like, they're just kind of out there. So we default, well, here's where my investment level is. I want to challenge you to push that to the aggressive side. And I'm going to show you kind of what that looks like. But we here at Southern Hills, Pastor Josh has led the way in this to where he completely restructured his schedule this last year to invest in young adults, to invest specifically in young men with a leadership track. And we've seen an incredible return on investment. So how can you do that? How can you invest aggressively? Here's what I would say. Young adults equate the value of your investment or the investment of your time with their value. They're going to equate how much time you're willing to give them with how much you value them. We can say it from the pulpit. We can start programs. We can invite them to be a part of our young adult groups. But until we sit down and spend one-on-one time with them, they're not going to really believe the truth behind our saying of, hey, you have value. We've got to invest that time in them. Young adults equate the investment of your time with their value. So here's ideas for aggressive investment. First, refuse to be passive. The opposite of aggressive is passive. You've got to decide, I don't want to be passive. Passivity looks like this. Man, I hope some young adults reach out to me and maybe we can start something. Aggressiveness is, I want to know who the young adults are and I want to schedule meetings with them. I was going to say, if you're a big deal like Pastor Josh, you can have your assistant do that, but I just got an assistant, so I can't say that anymore. I can't make fun of him. But the reality is, wherever you're at, if you have your assistant do it, if you do it, wherever you're at, you just decide, I will not be passive when it comes to young adults in my ministry. We'll talk more about what that looks like. Then add margin to your schedule. Schedule blocks. Hey, here's time when I meet with young adults. Schedule that out, and then those names will get entered into those empty slots. Add margin to your schedule. Then as you go, take someone with you. Maybe you have a tighter schedule than most people do. Find things you're already doing, places you're already going, and bring a young adult with you. Young adults love, you call it a ride along, whatever you want. Hey, I'm going to go minister. Hey, I'm going to go spend time doing this. Hey, I've got setup. I've got tear down. You find margin in your schedule. And even if it's margin where you're doing something, take a young adult with you. I can't tell you how many talks I've had with young adults while we're doing something together. So as you go, take someone with you and then post about it on social media. Let young adults in your ministry, in your community know I'm accessible. I'm available for you. Let them know, hey, I just spent time with this guy. He's keeping me young, or whatever you want to do, but post about it and decide right now, I'm going to aggressively invest in the young adults at my church. All right. We mentioned this quote a couple months ago when I talked about youth ministry, but it rings true for young adult ministry. Ironically, if you value attendance over engagement, Carrie Newhoff says, you will see declining attendance. What that means is you've got to decide, I will be engaged with the individuals, not just look at the overarching attendance of my young adult ministry. So lean in and say, I'm going to be intentional about how I engage. I'm going to make sure that I'm aggressive with how I engage with people. I think this is key to who I am, but I think this is key to the success we've seen with our young adult ministry. My goal is not to create a thriving young adult ministry. My goal is to help the young adults I have thrive. Now, two things can be true at the same time. When I help the young adults I have thrive, I will have a thriving young adult ministry. But the reverse is not necessarily true. If I create a quote unquote thriving young adult ministry, it doesn't mean that the young adults I have are thriving. So if I make my focus the individual, then I'll see a reward across the board. My goal is not to create a thriving young adult ministry. So if you think today, I'm going to go start a young adult ministry and have 50, I would caution you against that, because what you want is to find 5. I need 5 young adults that I can invest in, and then they'll find 5, and then you kind of go from there. I believe that with all my heart. The fourth thing I'd say is, after you decide to invest aggressively, build the bridge. You already have natural channels of young adults flowing to or flowing from your church. You've got to decide, how am I going to build the bridge? Build the bridge from youth group to young adult group. As you graduate your seniors, find those who are staying local, find those who are working a job, find those who are going to college, send them something while they're at college, but build that bridge from youth group and to your young adult group. Young adults want to know that they are connected. I'll give you a quote from one of our young adults here in towards the end of my presentation. And I couldn't believe how he emphasized and said, man, this was important to me. The second bridge I want to emphasize you to build is build a bridge from the outside to the inside. Don't just take for granted that young adults are going to get connected on a Sunday morning. When they show up on Sunday morning, have a retention plan for young adults. I'm going to connect with this young adult. I'm going to find time. I want to meet with them. I want to connect with them. So build a bridge from the outside to the inside. Young adult ministry is a concourse. Youth ministry is a concourse, but young adult ministry is a concourse. They will travel through it. They're not meant to stay in it. So your bridges have to be strong. The great thing would be, as you have young adults come, they spend time, they grow in your young adult ministry. Then if they come in and they're single and they get married, then they become deacons in your church. You have successfully helped them navigate the young adult years, and you've successfully created bridge, not just to, but from your young adult ministry into other areas of service in your church. So build the bridge. The last thing I'm going to say is this: get uncomfortable. And the reason you're going to have to get uncomfortable with young adults is no matter where you're at, they're going to have different interests. They're going to have different emphasis than you have. You have to be willing to get uncomfortable and kind of out of your comfort zone. I think it goes back to that mentality of investing moderately versus pushing that to invest aggressively. You have to be willing to get uncomfortable. I'll tell you 2 uncomfortable things that we've done. Share a quote with you, and then we'll be done. So we're almost there. Stay with me. Getting comfortable. 3 years ago, this February, we wanted kind of an event to take our young adults to. And so there was a camp down in Arizona that was having this young adult weekend. I didn't know anything about it. I'm like, let's just try it. It was kind of a risk, but let's just try it. We took a group of like 10 young adults down to this camp. It's the first conference I've ever been a part of that had like a mosh pit. I don't know if that's okay to say, but when the worship started, everyone came forward to the front, and I'm a bless God, I'm a front row Baptist. So I'm up there. I'm like, my young adults, like, this is gonna be awesome. This is gonna be amazing. The worship started. Literally hundreds, all pre-COVID. So hundreds of young adults came to the front, and they're worshiping like hands raised. That's probably the most uncomfortable I've been since I've been on staff at Southern Hills, because I'm like, what did I just do? I brought all my young adults to this rave. Like, what is going on? Like, what's happening here? And like, man, they're just passionate about Jesus. They're worshiping him. I'm looking around. I'm trying to focus on worship. I'm getting bumped and elbowed, and people are just like, Jesus, going crazy. We came back from that young adult weekend, and we had a core of young adults who said, we want to take this back to our young adult group. We had a core of young adults who said, we want the young adults in Las Vegas to experience what we just experienced in Arizona: a passion for Jesus, a fire for God. We're tired. Literally, these are my young adult followers that are looking at me, and they're like, we want young adults in this valley, the Las Vegas Valley, to be connected to the hillside and connected to Jesus. They're more on fire than I am. That was huge for us, but it took me getting uncomfortable. And what I love about that is that's not even necessarily anything I did other than schedule and book a retreat, a place for our group to go. And then God did that work. God ignited this passion in their hearts to reach the young adults in Las Vegas. Here's a picture of our group from this last year. We took 27 young adults this last year to Young Adult Weekend. And man, they connect, they get away, they refocus. They realize, hey, I'm kind of in a relationship that I shouldn't be in. I'm at a place spiritually that I shouldn't be. It's been huge for us. Find something, find somewhere, think outside the box when it comes to that. That you can take your young adults that maybe is a little different. Young adults want community, and they're willing. I believe it's all my heart. There is a generation in young adults right now that care more about the kingdom of God than the kingdoms of men. And that is so refreshing to me. They're passionate about it. Find a way to get them under that influence so they can get on fire for Jesus. The next thing that we did, so they came back and they're like, we got to bring this to Vegas. We got to find a way to do it. 2 years ago, that vision kind of started. 3 years this February. And they're like, we need to host something. And I'm like, okay, great. So now you take me to this uncomfortable conference. Now you tell me I have to do one for you. Like, I don't know how this is going to work. So we started building relationships over the last 2 years with churches in the Las Vegas Valley. And maybe you've seen some of this on our social media, Instagram, all that. But we started a young adult group, literally gathering, and we called it The Belonging. And there were 5 host churches, and there were, I think, 9 different churches that were represented at this event. We hosted the very first one at Southern Hills Friday, August 13th over the summer. We had 191 young adults come out for this event, praising Jesus, worshiping him, like literally citywide, valley-wide. And the emphasis of this young adult gathering had nothing, this is where you got to get uncomfortable, had nothing to do with the individual churches and everything to do with the kingdom of God. Now, the individual churches were there, they were represented, and we tried to connect young adults to the various young adult groups. But the focus of this belonging event was that they belong to God, their creator, and then they belong to Jesus, their savior, helping them to realize the Imago Dei, helping them to realize the redemption story that's at play in their life. We had young adults that were there that have not been in church in years. We had young adults that connected to an event like this that would never come to church. And it was huge for us, but it took a lot of just being willing to be uncomfortable, partnering with other churches. You guys know, especially in your city, the balance and the tension that it takes to kind of manage that. To God be the glory. We saw success with that. We're thankful for it. Here's a picture from our event. We asked another pastor, not that we don't have an awesome pastor and an awesome speaker for a pastor and Pastor Josh, but we asked another pastor to come speak to all these young adults. This was our team that we kind of put together. We printed you notice in this picture, we printed a backdrop for pictures. And then our groups were so big that the backdrop didn't even fit the people. We should have got a bigger backdrop. But that's an awesome problem to have. So there are churches represented. You see there Hayden, who's the pastor of Walk Church here in our city. John, who's the young adult and youth pastor up at the Well. George, who is youth pastor over at Walk. Michael and Abby's our team. So all the way across Kinsey, who's over at Walk. Chuck right there by me. And then Nate on the other side of me. Both of them are from Life. And then, of course, represented at Southern Hills. 2 years ago, this camaraderie didn't exist. And now it does because of young adults. Because young adults said, man, we want to get together. We want to share Jesus in a powerful and passionate way. I reached out to one of our young adults. His name is Vinny, and asked him just last night, we were texting. And I said, hey, man, I'm giving this talk to a bunch of pastors tomorrow or ministry leaders tomorrow. I said, tell me what the Hillside has meant to you. Tell me how it has helped you. Here's what Vinny sent to me. And I want to make sure that I get this right. Part of my screen is kind of covered. So let me make sure that I don't know if I can minimize that or not. Anyways, let me just read it to you this way. You can probably read it okay. But he said, graduating from this event and growing into Hillside was huge for me. I remember being a senior in high school, 16 years old, when I first attended Hillside. Hillside U, he texted me, placed an emphasis on the fact that you wanted me to be a part, and I felt invited. The age group was obviously 18 to 28, but because of the transition, my old and small view of God and his people wasn't ripped from me with this expectation to learn this and learn that because I'm an adult now. Then he goes on to say, and now I've got it right here, so I can read it better. The transition was smooth, and the growth I've had with God and my friends are a direct result from that. I never would have thought that an emphasis for a student graduating from high school was, hey, you're an adult, you're supposed to know everything about God now. But a young adult group gave Vinny that place to be okay knowing he has to learn, but he's not there yet. I thought that was huge just for me. And then the second thing that Vinny said specifically in this area was, I asked him, I said, again, just share anything that you want to about this. And he talked about our belonging event that we had. And he said, the emphasis on the belonging, the emphasis being on the belonging to the family of God rather than a church was huge. Seeing people who were new to the faith or who had left the faith come to the belonging and enjoy their time was amazing. It felt inviting and welcoming to the unchurched and the dechurched. I think it's really interesting and an important note that we as church leaders understand our young adults are familiar with words like unchurched and dechurched. I did not tell him these words or prep him. He knows these words. He knows what young adults are struggling with. He knows there's an emphasis on young adults graduating and leaving the church. He's aware of that. And that's exactly how it should be. This also ties in with the emphasis of independence that Hillside has from the main FHB service. You don't have to be a member of the church to be a member of the young adult group. There's no exclusivity in that. However, there is encouragement. The family of God is inclusive, not exclusive, and the Hillside and belonging is just that. I talked earlier about being uncomfortable. one of the delineators we made with the Hillside was someone could be a part of the Hillside and not be a part of Southern Hills Church on the morning in the morning. And the reason for that, and Pastor Josh, when we open for Q&A, I want you to kind of speak into that. The reason for that, we said, was we believe there are young adults who aren't ready for the church, but they'll come to a young adult group. They're not ready to become churched again or get back into it, but they'll come to a young adult group. And so we allow that space for that. Now, Vinny even picks up on, he says there's no exclusivity, but there is encouragement. Once a young adult has grown to that level of realizing I need church, we're going to tell them, go to church. Our church is at this time. Here's some other churches in the valley that you can go to, but it's that process. You got to be willing to kind of meet them where they're at and then be okay with that. So quick recap, there's so much discussion that could take place here. I'm curious your thoughts in it and if you've seen that, but quick recap, identify your target, start monthly, start small, start monthly, but be good at it, be excellent at it, invest aggressively. Don't allow yourself to be passive when it comes to young adults. Invest aggressively, build the bridge, and then get uncomfortable. And that's what I've got for today. So thanks for being with me. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll put my email in here and all that if you want to talk further about it, but I think it's Q&A time.
Thank you so much, Caleb. I know there are a lot of questions, I'm sure. So let's go ahead and jump right to that to take advantage of the time. What you shared was so encouraging, so exciting, and a lot of guys can start at different levels depending on where they're at. Who would like to begin with a question for Caleb or myself and Caleb as it relates to what we're doing with young adult group here in Las Vegas?
Hey, Caleb, what do you give your young adults the topic that they will be discussing that month? Do you give it to them early or just that night?
No, we give it to them early. We actually pretty aggressively post on social media, which is where most of them get. We do two things. We aggressively post on social media. So we usually try and have that prepped by that talk. So September, we announce our October talk. Hey, next month, don't miss. This is what we're talking about. Then we push it on social media. Then we send out, we have a service called Text in Church, another great service where you can basically put people in groups and you can send out one text to a real phone number to 100, 500 people at a time, however you want to do it. But you can include links, all those things. It's been a great addition to our resource bin here. So we'll post on social media, we'll text, but yeah, we get it out to them as fast as we can because we want them to be able to attend and know what the talk is about.
Very good. Next question. So one of the things I was going to add to this conversation is restructuring your schedule so you can spend time with individuals. I am not part of Caleb's official system. Well, I'm part of it, but what I do when it comes to young men mentoring is kind of alongside of his system and pushing people back into the hillside as best I can, and also then taking people from the hillside that he's properly discipled to a place where I can take them next step and forward. I've already talked about that here. I was recently talking with my brother Matthew, who had just introduced this to his schedule this last month. And he said, you know, it's funny, whenever you're focusing on young adults, when you sit down in a young mentorship group, and I assume it's the same for a large young adult group, it's amazing how no matter what happens in your week, no matter what goes terribly wrong in your week, you sit down with young adults and you are genuinely discipling them and seeing them take steps forward to Jesus. And suddenly everything is worth it. You realize I am genuinely and truly passing down the faith to this next generation. And there's something fascinating about that as it relates specifically to 18 to 22-year-olds, or excuse me, 18 to 28-year-olds, right in that age range where Jesus was developing his own disciples. It's really, really a great rewarding thing. Anyone else?
Yeah, Kylie mentioned in the comments there, Caleb, if a church doesn't have many young adults in their church right now, how can the church target and invite new young adults specifically? There's a book on that called Growing Young, where they've really, I think it was 4 different authors, but they put together a bunch of research and basically said like, hey, look, here's how you could start to target as a church young adults in your community to get them, you know, to come to your services and all that. It's a great resource to have. So I'd say there's some changes you can make from the top down. At Southern Hills, Pastor Josh has been so aware, and really Pastor Jason has been so aware of that in our program that we naturally attract young adults. So for us, we kind of have this reservoir of young adults who attend Sunday morning that we get to pull from. I would say if you don't have that, I would go back to my philosophy of the goal of young adult ministry is not to be the porch next year. In other words, not to have this program that you have made so successful at this incredible level. The goal of young adult ministry is to invest in young adults. So I would start right where you're at. If you have 5 young adults, I would do that one-on-one discipleship, getting into their lives, and they're getting into your life, and just beginning to invest one-on-one. And then you'll be surprised. Watch God start to grow that as they invite coworkers and invite friends. And it might start as like I said, a once a quarter event where you pull your worship team or a couple people from your worship team, and you have an event and you give away Chick-fil-A, and you invite young adults, and you say, hey, this is what this is for our area. We just want to kind of connect. So I would say start small, start one-on-one, and then kind of watch that grow.
100%. Any other questions to follow up with Caleb as it relates to young adult? I can't emphasize, and regardless of who you have, taking those 2 to 3 to 5, 18 to 28-year-olds, and just arranging your schedule to invest in them. If you properly mentor and disciple them, they will start bringing their own community into the church. It's extremely exciting. Somebody else.
Yeah. And what I love about that, Pastor, is what you're doing is you're playing the long game with your young adult ministry. I think that's important to remember. Play the long game with your young adult ministry. If you're investing in them, Pastor, you and I have talked about how, all right, where are these guys? How are they going to serve the church in 5 years? And in 10 years, how are they going to be the deacons of the church? And play the long game with your young adults. You don't have to have, wherever your level is, the porch or all the way down here at the hillside. You don't have to have that tomorrow. So invest in them one-on-one now, and just watch that kind of grow.
One of the great benefits of having been where I'm at for 18 years, we'll go to Dale. One of the benefits that, Dale, if you'll unmute yourself, of being in the same place for 18 years is that I've realized I wasted a lot of time early on, genuinely, but the time that I invested in 18 to 30-year-olds during the first 5 to 10 years of our ministry, those are my hardcore leaders that are in their 30s, 40s, and early 50s right now at Southern Hills. I did not inherit the greatest leaders at Southern Hills. I invested that time early on. And if I had spent more time investing in that age group 15 years ago, I'd have even more leaders today. So I'm investing in them now so that 10, 15 years from now, we've homegrown leaders. Dale.
Yeah.
If you could maybe just speak into this, and really anybody that has done this could speak into it, but like some practical things when it came to your schedule where you said, okay, I need to, in order to add this in, I need to get rid of this. In order to shift to this here, I need to readjust this part of my schedule or take this out. What are maybe some of those practical things where you said, okay, I need to change this here in order to focus in on young adults and stuff like that? Because there is the balance of investing in teenagers and investing in young adults and also kids, and kind of balancing that out. So do you have any like practical things that you like, I had to get rid of this in order to do this?
Yes. So I'll just share for me. Practically, there are 2 things. Number one, I had every Friday dedicated as Fridays with the pastor. They're coffee appointments, all-day coffee appointments. And I had arranged my schedule years ago to make that happen. It's awesome. Now I only do that every other week. And the other weeks I've dedicated to mentorship moments. The same thing is true when it comes to my weekly one-on-one meetings with my staff people. Some of my staff, I've decided I'm not going to have those one-to-one meetings. They have supervisors and other pastors that can have those meetings. And so I've dedicated that time, and I say, no, this day is just about mentoring young men. Now, I know my schedule is not your schedule. The point is, every one of our 168 hours, every one of our weeks get filled up. It's like your budget. No matter how much money you make, it will get spent. You have to decide ahead of time before that money gets spent and before that week gets spent. You have to say, regardless of what happens during every other Thursday is going to be given to young men. And you put that big rock in first. And then you say, well, some of these things just aren't going to be able to happen. Things like, well, I don't know, whatever your schedule might be. So there are certain sacrifices, and Dale, that's the point that you're making. There are going to be certain sacrifices. You say, this is more important than these things. And that's what happened with us. Caleb or anybody else would like to speak into that? Yeah, Carol.
All right. Let's see. You can hear me now, right?
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to be sure. How did you get past just, there's a lot of life differences between the 18 to 30, you know, fresh out of high school, single, young marrieds. How did you get past that to unify to where they're all together?
Yeah,
If that
I would
makes
say there
sense.
were a couple. Absolutely, that makes sense. There were a couple things. The first was we realized our target was too big at first. We were trying to go 18 to 28, almost to 30. The joke right now at Hillside is that I'm the old guy in the room. And I've never been the old guy in the room. I've been blessed to be around wiser and more mature people, you know, that are old. And so the joke right now is I'm the old guy in the room. What we realized was when we were trying to have that target too wide, what was happening was we were not able to focus on any one group well. So what we did was we narrowed our target. I already know if a 25, 26, 28, 30-year-old person walks in the room, I already know two things about them. Number one, they'll either, I hate to use the word acquiesce, but they'll either fall into the program that we've crafted because we know it's going to naturally trend younger, or I'll need to connect them with a small group or our men's ministry, our yoked men's ministry. Because I know that, hey, where they're kind of at, these age differences, career differences, all that, I might need to connect them with someone else. Even then, there are some balances. I told you about Daniel. He's a young adult. He's 20 years old. He's got a successful entrepreneurial spirit and successful business that he's kind of developed all on his own. Daniel, I try and get him there every single time. Sometimes he shoots me a text and says, hey man, I can't make it because he has a business, because he's at a different stage than a lot of 20-year-olds are. So that's a tension that you kind of have to manage. I kind of work that with him. What I found is I need to provide talks that add value to not just a 20-year-old attending UNLV, but a 20-year-old who doesn't even need college because he's already out there killing it in the business world. I need to provide value to him. So I brought in a guy like Corey Frank, who's in his 30s, who's successful in the business world. Guess what? Daniel was there. Daniel made it a priority. Daniel made it to Hillside. Daniel wanted to be there. I got a text from Corey this last week. So Corey talked about God at Sign work and basically saying, how do you navigate having a good Christian testimony and also being a really, really good worker to where you get that promotion, you get that bonus? Corey did all those things. At the end of the night, 3 young men cornered him. He's already connected those young men. Gabe is one of them. He already connected him with an event. Gabe eventually wants to get into law. He connected with him with a young event where he could be in law and specifically civil rights. He wants to be more of a civil rights activist. So Gabe connected him in that and said, hey, here's kind of how you can work with that. Here's a 20-year-old that I've got a 35-year-old who's successful in the business world, bringing him up to a new level. That's valuable. So I think you've got to add value across the board and help people realize, hey, I'm going to be there because of this. This adds value to me. Does
I hate to do it, but
question? I kind of went a couple different directions.
Oh no, it's good.
I
Thank you.
hate to do it, but we got to cut off for sake of time. You can reach out to Caleb at southernhillslv.com, Caleb at southernhillslv.com, or message him on any social media app for more information. Thank you so much for being here. Next week is we're going to have a really unique opportunity. The entire theme for the month of November is specifically longevity in ministry. And the best way to have longevity in ministry is obviously to reach the next generation and bring them in. And now to look to the previous generation. We're going to be joined by an incredible individual next week to speak specifically about this idea of how to, I'm not sure if we have that slide, Kylie, if that slide is up there, how to specifically have longevity within ministry. It's called Start Strong, Going Well with Dr. Gary Coleman. If you're not familiar with Dr. Gary Coleman, you're going to really enjoy his life in ministry. He's actually the mentor to several of the men that are members of this group, and we're going to hear from him next week. Thank you so much for joining us. Looking forward to this content. If you're watching live or if you're watching later on, feel free to reach out at any time. God bless, guys. We'll talk to you soon.